transition from beautiful music to science? Well, let's just get started. I'll share with you. This is my beautiful family, and I love my family. I love my beautiful wife, Crystal, and our 8 children, and I'd do anything for them. I also have a family here at Young Living. This is the science part of the family. There's a lot to the family, right? But these people here are the scientists that defend all of the products and all of the formulas at Young Living. And many of them actually have been with Young Living for more than 10 years. And it occurred to me that many of them, of course, work with Gary and were trained by Gary. And I added up all the years of time that these people spent with Gary, and they've spent 95 years with Gary. We have 95 years of institutional knowledge in our science team alone. And they're fiercely loyal to Gary and to Mary and to everything that they stand for. So I love these guys just like they're my own family, and in many ways I spend more time with them than my own family. So when you see a scientist, give them a hug for me. These guys have a hard job. You know, there are many formulas that Gary put together, and they're wonderful formulas, but sometimes maybe the ingredient no longer exists, and they have to maintain all of those formulas. And it's not always easy sometimes to see things change, but they have to make these hard decisions. Well, today, I'd love to talk a little bit about one of my favorite products, NingXia Red. Now, I've only been with Young Living for a couple of years, so you may be thinking, what does he know about NingXia Red? Well, my wife Crystal worked for Young Living 20 years ago. Knew Gary then, Mary, worked with the science team there. My wife is a scientist. And for a little bit of help with some of her homework that Gary gave her, some of it on einkorn, she smuggled home NingXia Red as soon as it was invented. And I've been drinking that product for 20 years or more, secretly bringing it to our house every month. And in fact, I worked for a different company in the Valley, and we created our own juice. And I gotta say, I prefer this juice all along. Am I allowed to say that now? I have never got tired of the flavor of NingXia Red. I love it. But let's talk a little bit about the science of it. You know, when it comes to science, you have to do clinical studies. And I want to describe the first clinical study that used humans. This is something that we use when it comes to the safety of ingredients. Some of it's just through human experience. So in the Zhang dynasty, this is like BC, a couple of thousand years ago. There was a farmer whose name was Gozi, and his wife was named Shizi. And he was a farmer, and this is a story like Mulan. The emperor at the time said, well, we need to go to war, and I'm going to have all of the men come to war. And I guess, Gozi didn't have a daughter named Mulan, so he had to go himself. And so they went off and they fought this battle, and all of the women were left behind to fend for themselves. And years later, when Gozi came back to his valley, he saw starvation and famine that was a result of the war. People were not doing too well. They were skinny and starved. And so he became really worried. Oh no, what about my wife? What about my mum? And he met his wife and his mum, and they reunited, and he was so surprised to see that they were healthy and that they were just vibrant. And he said, well, how did you do this? Everyone else is starving. And his wife said, well, there were some like red berries down by the river, and so we just had to eat a lot of those because there wasn't much food. And this was amazing to Gozi, and so he shared this with the rest of the village. And the rest of the village was so grateful that they named that red berry after him. His own name, Go, and his wife's name, Qi, so they put it together, Gozi. A lot of people call it the wolfberry today because in Chinese, Go means dog, right? So It's a beautiful story, but I think it's the story of the first safety study and the first clinical trial of this ingredient. Well, a couple of thousand years later, Gary Young found himself in that NingXia region of Japan, and he met a Chinese scientist, Dr. Chow, who introduced him to the wolfberry. And Gary thought, this is amazing. I need to share this with the world. Let's go outside of Gorge's village and share it with everyone. Dr. Chow explained that the people who regularly ate this wolfberry led remarkably long and energy-rich lives. And so this, again, needs to be shared with the world. They did some original research then, and Gary did some of his own. And I want to share with you a study that we did just in 2020. It was before I arrived. But just understanding how this berry, which was turned into a drink, basically based on the goji berry, studied the effects of it. Let's document this. And in a study like this, you kind of think, well, more is better. We want it to work. But actually, no, the study was designed just to give the recommended amount, the 2 ounces a day. It was randomized and single blind, meaning that you had 160 people in the study and we divided it into 2 sections. It's often called arms or legs. I don't know why they do that, but so one of the arms of the study was the product. But they didn't know what they were drinking. It was unlabeled, but it was 2 ounces of NingXia Red every morning. And the other group, they said, well, that's the other arm. Just do what you normally do, don't change anything. And we'll get baseline, we'll study some things, and then we'll study you at 60 days. And they basically filled out these surveys. So these are validated surveys to determine how well are you sleeping, what's your mood like, what's your job satisfaction like. And they have a job satisfaction scale for nurses who are under a lot of stress. A cognitive study, and they collected these data, and basically, these are the results. And what you see here is that 35% increase in physical energy levels, improved sleep patterns, and that involved an increased time of sleeping every night. Inflammation response, daily stress, so the stress was reduced, mental well-being improved, and even noticed an improvement in respiratory function. So if you go to our website, you'll see these claims that are approved, and if you break it down, you'll see energy, wellness, antioxidants, and sleep. But I kind of really like to dig into things a little deeper. Why is it working? I know we've observed these things, but do you ever wonder why? Why is it working so well? That's the kind of stuff I like to dig into. And so let's talk about it today. And first of all, when a scientist looks at a food that's healthy, one of the big hints that it's a healthy food is the color of that food. If it is rich in color, that tells you that it's got a lot of nature's pigments inside. And nature's pigments are actually famous for being bioactive, improving your health and wellness. So let's talk about what they are then. So we know that there are vitamins and minerals in the goji berry. There are antioxidants, but these antioxidants are mostly probably because of these colors. And these colors are things like carotenoids, zeaxanthin, lutein, and others. Let's talk about the colors. So this time of year, have you looked at the mountains in Utah? Did you see the leaves changing? Okay, just a month ago, they were green. So where did the orange, the yellow, the red, where did that come from? Well, in fact, they were always there. It's just that you have this green stuff called chlorophyll that's always sort of blocking it. And so when the chlorophyll drains out of the leaves, you see those beautiful colors that were already there. Those are carotenoids. And they do all sorts of things for the plant. They help it to harvest energy from the sun, like little solar panels. And they also help protect it from the sun and its harsh rays. So here's a list of some of those colorful chemicals, the beta-carotene, which is orange, the alpha-carotene that's orange, the lutein that's yellow, the lycopene that's red. These are some of the things that you would expect. Now the question is, why does the plant make them? So let's look at this NingXia Valley. This is actually a very harsh region. It's a climate that is quite harsh and variable. It's high altitude, and if it's high altitude, it means that there's less protection from the sun, from the atmosphere. They have these fierce winds that blow from the west that blow in these sand dunes, but it's somewhat protected by the mountains. There's a big variation in temperature, and the soil that's deposited there from the Yellow River is actually quite thick, and there's not much rainfall. So these plants have to struggle to survive. Now, plants have intelligence. Did you ever look at it that way? Like humans have a brain and we can talk. Plants have a different kind of intelligence. It's a quiet intelligence that's dictated by their DNA. So plants can't run and hide in the shade. So their DNA then, in response to stress, produces these molecules that help to protect them from the harsh environment. And those are often the colors that we find in nature. And here's the interesting thing. The people that live in the same place are subjected to the same harsh environment. It's a hard place to live there. The sun is strong, there's not much protection. So what happens is when you eat the plant that is growing in the place that you live, then those benefits from the plant are translated into your body. So that's where the colors come from. And we can learn something from that. When we are subjected to harsh conditions, when things are tough in life, you can actually become stronger. Well, we've done analysis, and sure enough, yes, modern chemistry can tell us that these things are there. We can see that we have zeaxanthin, 28 milligrams in 28 grams of goji berry. That's a really cool carotenoid. Let's talk a little bit about that one. Carotenoids, like I said, are found in those colorful foods. They're a first line of defense antioxidant, and they protect all of the cell membranes. We have trillions of cells and all of the membranes. That's where the carotenoids go, and they protect you from free radical damage. They even protect the DNA because there's a membrane that surrounds the DNA in the nucleus of the cell. Now, these also protect from blue light. Blue light, when you think of the rainbow, right, it starts with the red, goes through those orange, yellow, green, blue, and then violet and ultraviolet. The closer you get to blue, the more energetic that is. It's a shorter wavelength and it's more energetic. And you all know what ultraviolet does to the skin, right? It starts to burn, it starts to age. But blue is close to that. Now what happens? Light goes into your eye. That's how you see things. And that light, some of it is blue. We're all looking at our screens, there's a lot of blue light, but it's everywhere. That's the light, that's the frequency of radiation that's most likely to damage your eyes. So when I look at the level of zeaxanthin that is in our NingXia Red, I think there's a lot of eye protection in there. Something that can really support your eye health. I don't know if I saw that on the claims, but it's certainly something that can be verified by science. And should we go into the literature, all of the published studies, will we see something about goji berries protecting the eyes? Yes, we can see that that's the case. Lutein, zeaxanthin, mesozeaxanthin, the basic clinical science underlying carotenoid-based nutritional interventions against, boy, how did this get past legal? Ocular disease just means eye health, right? Here's another one. Goji berry intake increases macular pigment. That means you drink or you eat the goji berry, it's going to increase the concentration of those carotenoids in the back of the eye and protect them. So vitamin A, which comes from beta-carotene, that helps with vision. But some of these carotenoids protect your eye and keep it healthy for the rest of your life. All right, now as I started to dig into the research, I'm always reading these studies from the literature that's been published. I noticed something else that maybe we weren't even, well, maybe will help to explain why we are feeling these things as a result of eating this berry, right? This one here, have you all heard of that? Lycium barbarum, do you know what that is? That is the genus and the species. It's the Latin name for the goji berry. So when you see it in the literature, it's called Lycium barbarum. And look at this, there's this thing called Lycium barbarum polysaccharides. And they're testing its effects on immunity. Well, look at that one on the left. Lycium barbarum glycopeptide prevents the development and progression of, looks like the lawyers got into this one, something by regulating the composition and diversity of the gut microbiota. So I looked at this and I thought, wow. And I asked my team, what are the claims again for this product? Energy, antioxidants, sleep. And I said, wow, I haven't seen this one about the microbiota. And this may be a clue as to why this product works so well in the clinical study. So do you want to dig into this a little bit more? All right, let's do that. All right, so we've talked so far about vitamins, antioxidants, carotenoids. These polysaccharides are so interesting. They're called LBPs. That's because scientists have amazing imaginations when they name things. What's the LB stand for? Anyone? I just gave you a hint. It's the Latin binomial Lycium barbarum. And the P stands for polysaccharides. Aren't scientists creative? All right, so there are some polysaccharides in there, LBPs and beta-glucans. Let's dig into that a bit. What's a polysaccharide? Well, it's something that's more than a monosaccharide, right? Mono is one, di is two, and then poly is more. So I don't know if you recognize this disaccharide here, but it's called sucrose, right? That's table sugar. You probably should not have too much of that. But actually what the plants do with their intelligence is they create these very complex molecules of sugars that have longer chains. And they have amazing benefits for human health. These are some of the things that the scientists are studying when it comes to the wolfberry. These are super interesting. Now you might think they're a boring chain of saccharides there. And maybe I'm a boring person, I don't know. But I spent 4 years as a Ph.D. student studying polysaccharides and their health effects. And then I spent 3 or so more years at the National Cancer Institute studying these polysaccharides. They're very interesting. There's an almost limitless combination, and the way that they're joined together also can add to their value and their biological activity. So let's just have a look at some of these polysaccharides. You see that they have a lot of these oxygen groups joined to them. You see that? You see the sort of the carbon backbone of the sugar, and then you see these OH groups. I'll highlight them in red. When you see an OH group in nature like that, it's actually able to pass electrons off to free radicals. And so this indicates that it's a very strong antioxidant. You probably don't think of these polysaccharides as antioxidants, but in the wolfberry they definitely are. But there's something more. Depending upon the structure, they're also often found in grains and mushrooms, and they actually look like the cell wall of a bacteria. Now what happens when your body sees bacteria? Let's say you get a cut and bacteria gets in, what happens? Your immune system is alerted. You'll feel pain. Maybe there's some swelling and redness, right? This is all inflammation, and it's healthy because the body is recruiting immune cells to that place to fight for you, to keep you healthy, to keep the bacteria and the viruses out. Now, these beta-glucans and other polysaccharides, they don't injure the body, but they kind of put the immune system on a red alert. It's like ringing the bell in the castle saying, hey, danger. So the body then sort of becomes on yellow alert and says, okay, I'm ready for whatever comes. It's just keeping the soldiers awake. It's an amazing way that nature helps with your immune system. There's another thing that's quite remarkable about these polysaccharides. They are the food that the bacteria, the friendly bacteria in the GI tract, eat. So we should talk a little bit more about that, because I think this opens up our NingXia Red to another angle of thought. Here's where I'm going with this. You've heard of this, right? Make a switch to a low-tox lifestyle. Young Living, I think more than any other company in the world, is aware of the toxins in our environment, and we certainly don't want to have those in the products that we take for nutrition. We don't want to have these, synthetics or toxics in our cleaning in the house. We want it to be safe for our pets and our children and us, and even things that we put on our skin. If we wash our hair with shampoo, that's touching our scalp. If we put on a moisturizer on our body, or a facial moisturizer, a toothpaste, all of those things are exposing themselves to our body every day. And we want to make sure that they're completely safe, right? Well, what about NingXia Red? Does it have a role to play? Sure, it's clean. I showed you a picture of our chemist family that makes sure that everything in the product is free of pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, heavy metals, whatever it may be that's toxic to your body. It's a clean and beautiful product. But what more can it do? The hint is in the GI, and I mentioned those polysaccharides. So here's a look at the GI, and I love this picture on the left because it makes it look like, there are flowers. There's a flower right at the bottom there, which is where all of the bad stuff comes out, right, where the poop comes out. It makes it look sort of wonderful and clean, but in actual fact, you look at that small intestine, and then if you go to that next circle where you see mucosa, you see that it's actually got a lot of fuzzy stuff on there. And so you look a little bit closer, and that's called the villi. These villi are increasing the surface area of the GI. Why? Why do you want to increase the surface area? Because every nutrient is precious, and the body wants to absorb the vitamins and the minerals and the antioxidants so that your body can benefit. Actually, look a little closer at that next, the fourth circle, and you'll see that there are, on the fifth circle, microvilli. So it's like the fingers are the villi, and then on the fingers there are even smaller fingers that increase the surface area to the point where you have this huge surface area about the size of a tennis court in that GI. Now, it acts like a great wall that not only absorbs nutrients but protects from the toxins and all the nasty stuff that's actually in the GI, right? Because it's kind of nasty in there. It's a little bit like a sewer. The body's sort of sorting through this. You've got bacteria. In fact, in the colon, the concentration of bacteria in that space is the most dense of any environment in the world. And you don't want any of that, any of the waste products, any of the bacterial cell wall, any of the poopy stuff to get into your body. So you see there, we call it the GI barrier function, meaning the gastrointestinal barrier function. It has to be tight like a drum so that the bad stuff stays out and only the good stuff gets in. It controls it like a great wall. Imagine it as your GI, gastrointestinal BFF, which is kind of a slang for what? Best friends forever. Right? And so you need to have your GI BF, your BFF. How do we do that? Well, let me talk a little bit more. So here's a sewer, right? All sorts of warnings here, like, oh, there's been a spill, don't walk in this river. And here's this crazy lady, and she's walking through this really nasty river that's got poop floating in it and all sorts of things. Now, why would she do that? I don't know. You have to ask her. But you might risk it if you're, because your skin is actually a really nice tight barrier. But what if you had cuts in your skin? What if you had sores in your feet and you walked through this sewer? What do you think about that? It wouldn't take long and you'd have bacteria trying to get into those wounds and you're in a bad situation. That would be very unhealthy. Well, imagine our GI the same way. It's a barrier, kind of like your skin, but on the inside, and it's only a couple of cells deep. So here's a picture of that. You see the pink cells are the cells that line the gut wall. And they like to be nice and tight and plump. so that they can control what comes in and what stays out. And you'll see at the base of that, in the intestinal side there, a lot of immune cells. They just kind of look like funny little creatures there, but they're immune cells. And you also have, like, you see the green? There's like mucus layers. So they are protecting. Now, what's outside that mucus layer? Well, you've got all this nasty stuff, right? Have you ever seen the poop emoji? Yeah, this is real. There's other stuff in there too. There are these bacteria. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. If you're eating a good diet, most of them will be good. There's always some of the bad in there, right? Now, they're in amongst all of that poopy stuff. You want them to stay on the other side, right? Yeah, I hope so. All right. So, the interesting thing about these friendly bacteria is they excrete these little molecules called short-chain fatty acids. These short-chain fatty acids are, I guess you'd call them the poop from the bacteria. But these guys, this stuff, these short-chain fatty acids, is actually good because it is the main energy source for the cells that line the gut wall that I've got there highlighted in yellow. So healthy bacteria are going to produce these short-chain fatty acids, and they're going to make healthy gastrointestinal barrier cells. They get plump and healthy, and when they're plump and healthy, then the gap between them is very tight, and nothing gets through unless they let it. That's how we want it to be. Now, what do you feed these bacteria so that they produce the short-chain fatty acids? Well, some of these polysaccharides, some of these things from nature, some of them anthocyanins and other things. But this is what that paper was basically showing, that people who eat the wolfberry and expose themselves to these wonderful polysaccharides and other phytochemicals in that berry are actually making the GI microflora much more healthy. When the microflora are healthy, the gut is healthy. When the gut is healthy, the whole body is healthy. There's less inflammation. So we talked about sleep. Remember that study that showed that sleep is better? And I wondered, well, why? Why is that better? Why do you sleep better when you take NingXia Red? This is the clue. When the GI is healthy, then it's producing more of the happy chemicals like serotonin. It's also protecting your body from inflammation. Remember that study talked about mood as well. You know, when people are depressed and they take these antidepressant drugs, I'm starting to get into tough territory now because there's probably a lawyer in the room. But you take these antidepressant drugs and they may or may not work. And the scientists actually, you would think they know exactly how they work, wouldn't you? But scientists actually don't know exactly how these antidepressants work. They talk about things like, serotonin reuptake inhibitors and monoamine oxidase. They have a lot of neurology, but they don't exactly know the mechanism. But you know what they're learning? That they're acting somehow as an antioxidant in the brain, and that's how they work. Now, antioxidants fight what? They fight free radicals and inflammation. If you can prevent the inflammation, if you can give your body antioxidants and prevent inflammation by keeping the gut barrier tight, that's how it affects your mood in a positive way and in a natural way. And that also helps you to sleep, because there are molecules in the brain called GABA that when you expose them to polyphenols and other things from nature, they say, it's time to be calm, time to sleep. So we're starting to get a picture now of why NingXia Red, in that clinical study, helps with mood and with sleep, not just energy and some of those other things. What do you think about that? All right. So here's the paper again, and I've outlined it in blue. Recently, both in vitro and in vivo studies have demonstrated that the biological effects of the LBPs, the lyceum barbarum polysaccharides, are related to the regulation of gut microbiota, the friendly bacteria that are pooping out short-chain fatty acids, that are keeping the cells that line the gut healthy, plump, happy, tight, BFF, all right? So this could modulate the composition of microbial communities, bet it does, and simultaneously influence the levels of active metabolites, short-chain fatty acids, thus exerting their beneficial effects on host health. Who is the host? We are the host, right? So I love to see this in the literature, and I love to help you understand that this is how this wonderful product is working. So what did Gary say about it? He said, the biggest question that I get asked is, how much should I take? A maintenance serving is 2 ounces a day. We know that, right? That's what we used in the study. A serving of 6 ounces a day has greater health benefits. The more you can drink closer to 6 ounces a day, the healthier you will feel. That's what Gary said in 2011. Well, we did a focus group to understand how much are people drinking of this. Because if they're anything like me, they can't stop at 2 ounces a day. It's so good, right? And the average person at Young Living consumes more like 6 to 8 ounces a day. 2 ounces at 8 a.m., 2 ounces at 10, and 2 ounces at 2. So that's nice to know that you guys are drinking a little bit more and feeling good. And I'm just going to close with this testimonial. This is from Stacy Teagues. I had no idea the power of the sugar addiction I had in 2012. Someone told me about the NingXia Red supplement, so I quit drinking sweet coffees every day and changed it out for 2 ounces of NingXia Red drink. What did she do? She made a switch, right? Just a little switch. She changed from probably what was an unhealthy habit, too much of those disaccharides, and converted that, made a switch to a product with ingredients in it that were full of polysaccharides and antioxidants. A different way of looking at it. So she changed it out for 2 ounces of NingXia Red drink. Every quarter after that, my sugar cravings were gone. Now I can think more clearly. Okay, why can she think more clearly? We kind of talked about this, right? If you are kind to your GI and you have less inflammation, then there are more happy molecules in the brain, less inflammation, and clearer thinking and better sleep. You sleep more, you sleep well, you think more clearly the next day, right? It's all starting to make sense. Right, she can think more clearly, her skin and energy levels are awesome, I sleep better, and my digestive system is very regular. Wait, digestive system? You bet. This product is amazing. It was the catalyst to a new, healthier lifestyle that completely changed me and my family for the better, and I will never be without it. So I hope today we've given you a little bit of insight into the value of this amazing product that I've been drinking personally for 20 years. If you need more information, you've got to dig around the website a little bit. We have some amazing materials on that website. We have NingXia educational resources on the product page. Scroll down to more information and click on Learn More and find out some more for yourself. Thank you so much, everyone.